I have been super excited to learn N8N, and this is the second thing that I built, and I think it's worth digging into. I'll show you the different nodes that I'm using, kind of explain the anatomy of what's here, and yeah, the short of it is I have a pain point in my life where I work hard at my day job. I have a lot of personal emails that just flood my personal inbox, and the signal to noise ratio is unfavorable. Most of these emails I don't need to read, I don't need to reply to. A lot of them are just unwanted subscriptions that I should probably unsubscribe from. So learning how to use N8N, I'm trying to figure out, how do I automate things in my life where I have pain, where I have tasks I don't want to do. This was near the top of my list. So yeah, this is an email classifier. Let's zoom in and we'll go through what these individual steps are. So the whole the whole sequence starts with an email being received. I have a pinned email. This is just a test email I sent. Welcome to Skillet AI. And basically, what this does is it connects to my Gmail account. It does it every minute. And when it gets a message, it essentially unpacks all this data in the message. And that's it. All right, so this takes the messages and it passes it to an OpenAI query. This OpenAI node, you can see the input is the message. So in general, everything with N8N, you're going to see input, logic, output, right? So here we have the input of that message, and all of the previous steps are going to show up here. I only have the first step, which is this new email trigger. But based on this input, I'm sending a command to ChatGPT. I had to connect my OpenAI account. I have an API account through OpenAI. And basically I put in this prompt, it's saying, classify, is it a newsletter? Is it an email that needs reply? Or is it a for your information email? So based on this logic, when this step executes, it takes the given email and it basically does classification, right? So here's the actual content part of this response. There's a whole bunch of other data that you get when you send data to an API. It tells you the model, the completion, the date, all that stuff. But this is the core part right here. And here it's saying this content is categorized as newsletter. Why? The email welcomes the user to a service and includes promotional content. Summary, Skillet AI welcomes the user and shares their first video. All right, so that's well classified. There isn't an unsubscribe link. There should be. This was not sent through a subscription, but that's how it got classified. And there's other information here. So this is essentially doing the core logic. This is where I need AI to do the logic. And I'm just using Foro. This is the cheapest API. I think it's like a penny per query. You could use a ton of other APIs and potentially pay a lot more, but you don't need to use O3 or O1 Pro to just do this classification. This is pretty simple. Okay, so based on what happens here, there's a bunch of data that gets sent to the switch. And essentially, there's three different baskets of data, right? Because it's being classified into three different things. So it's either a needs reply classification, which also includes a draft reply. It's a newsletter, which this last one was, which should have an unsubscribe link. And then there's an FYI, which has neither of those. So when this step executes, essentially what it's saying is, all right, I have this input. Which of these outputs do I route to? So output 0 got nothing because there was no needs reply information. Output 1 looks for FYI. It also got nothing. Output 2, this is where it sends something. So you can see that the sequence drives into the switch, and this particular switch routed down this path. All right, so let's follow this path. With this particular path, we're adding a label called newsletter. So what are we doing? We're connecting back to Gmail. We're saying, hey, here's this message. We're dropping in this particular message ID. So it's this message, not any message. And we're saying, just add the label newsletter. This one's pretty simple. Execute step. Boom. That's been added, right? The label's been added. And then it's also marking it as read. So this was a choice that I made. I don't need to if I have 200 unread emails, I can just look at a digest of all these newsletters. I don't need to read these. So with this one, essentially it's just marking as read. When this executes, here it was unread, here it's read, no big deal. And then it gets logged into a Google Sheet. So this is the Google Sheet that I'm using to collect all the data from these processes. And you can see there's 3 different options: needs reply, log, and newsletter. And as soon as I run this step, what we should see is it's adding data to a particular spreadsheet name, email agent v1, to a particular sheet. And then it has mapped fields. It's pulling in from subject, summary, all this information from all these fields that I have from other steps. And sure enough, if I go to newsletters, this last row is going to be Skillet AI, welcome. This is the exact email that it just processed. All right, so that's sort of going from top to bottom. In terms of this top one, I'm going to send another test email. I'm just going to pause the video. I'll send another test email, and let's follow what happens when it's in this top track. Okay, so I just sent myself a little test email, and you can see that now when this reruns, now there's a new email that's in here. I can't find my sunglasses. Did you see them? If you find them, can you bring them to the game on Saturday? Thanks, Noah. Okay, so this is not going to be perceived, I don't suspect, as a subscription. So let's run the email classifier, and let's run the switch. And you can see that this time it went to the top track, and we can take a look and see why, right? So the sender is asking if the recipient has seen their lost sunglasses, is requesting help. Noah is asking, this is the summary, draft reply. So it's doing everything we asked. All right, so now this switch is getting data in output 0, not in output 2. Why? Because output 0 is looking for needs reply as the content type. And now it has a draft reply. So this has been included from ChatGPT. It's now being passed through the switch. And now we run up to this top track. And in the top track, it's still working in Gmail, but now instead of labeling this as a newsletter, we're actually going to star it. We're adding a star. This is very simple. Here it's adding the star, no big deal. Great. Let's run this step. And then it's taking the draft reply that's been passed from ChatGPT and from the switch, and it's actually going to create a draft, right? So now it's dynamically saying, what's the subject of the email? It's pulling in the previous subject. What's the message? It's pulling in the draft reply that OpenAI had sent. It's using a specific thread ID, so it's a reply, and it's using the to email from the original. So all of these key things, subject, message, thread, email, that's all being pulled in dynamically. And this is now in my drafts of my inbox. So what does the actual draft say? Let's see, let's go back here. The draft reply says, hey, Noah, I haven't seen your sunglasses yet, but I'll keep an eye out. If I come across them, I'll definitely bring them to the game on Saturday. Well, maybe I want to write that. Maybe I want to send that. Maybe I don't. But now I can triage my inbox, and at least there's a starting point for me to work off of. And it's already written a draft for me. So this is literally sitting in my drafts. It's also now going to get logged to the spreadsheet. Let's run this, but it's going to a different tab, right? So in the spreadsheet, we have the newsletter tab. Here's the reply needed tab. And here we can see this particular message. I haven't seen your sunglasses. I'll keep an eye out. And then finally, just so that I know all this has happened, I'm having it send me a Slack notification. So here it's got all these prior steps. It's sending it to a specific Slack channel. It's sending a message, and it's basically summarizing what it did. And now I get a notification. Oh, I got an email. It needs a reply. There's a draft written. Right? And then the FYI switch, I'm not going to show that as an example. It's pretty straightforward. But the FYI switch is essentially, it's just going into this. It's not being marked as read. It's not being starred. There's no reply. It's just being put into this log. All right, so that's the short version of what was done here. And there's so much more that you could potentially do. And I always want to dig into what else is possible. This is a very simple example, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. So what else could you do? Well, we dealt with classification and switches. This is a powerful system that you could use in so many other different ways as a developer, in this case, a visual developer. But this classification, you could add in a ton of other inputs. So this was my email inbox as an input. Imagine as a marketer, whether it's customer service tickets, your live chat, your calendar, there's so many other inputs. Those are all possibilities. And the way that this is being classified, again, I have a pretty lengthy prompt in here. I'm not going to go into it now, but that can be fine-tuned. There's a ton of ways that you can feed in other information. And it's not just the prompt. You can feed in additional external tools into this for context. Super, super powerful. And then what we're doing at the end, this kind of stops where it's just being logged. You could build an entire system for sending you a report, a summary report. There's a ton of other ways that downstream from here, you could send reminders and have all sorts of summaries. And then finally, this is sort of a linear system that just happens and then ends. There's a ton of ways you could add feedback loops where you're training it on contacts and it's getting smarter over time, or you're training it on false positives when it thought it needed a reply and it got it wrong. This is a very, very powerful system, and we just started to grace the surface. So if you want to go deeper, this is about a 10, 15-minute video, kind of high level. If you want to go deeper, go to our website. We're going to have the full nitty-gritty of every single step you need to recreate this. We're going to share, the full prompt, all the examples, everything that you need to do to build this from scratch. You can even download this file template to import into your own N8N. So that's skilletai.com/classifier to get to this particular classifier project. All right, thanks for tuning in. I hope you find this as valuable as I did. My inbox is way better managed now. And again, this was literally the second project I've ever built in N8N, just trying to figure out some of the basic mechanics. Can't wait to see what you build. Happy building. Cheers.